NATO protesters are still in the streets in Chicago tonight. You're looking at a live picture of Michigan Avenue just about in front of the Art Institute. Earlier today, protesters and police clashed in a violent, bloody confrontation, and it happened just blocks from McCormick Place, where President Obama and dozens of other world leaders were meeting. Tonight, heads of state gathered for a group photo at Soldier Field. They met there for a working dinner. We have complete coverage of all the developments as Chicago takes the world stage.
But we begin tonight with action in the streets, and ABC 7's Chuck Gowdy has been following it all day. Chuck?
Cheryl, Ron, standing in the middle of Michigan Avenue at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, not a normal place for anyone to be, least of which this unbelievable column of Chicago police officers standing right in the median of Michigan Avenue in front of the Art Institute, face to face with protesters who have been here for the last couple of hours. These protesters have been here face to face with Chicago police as Michelle Obama is entertaining NATO wives on the inside. And here's a little of what it sounded like.
No more blood! No more death! No more blood! No more death! No more...
Tonight, protesters crisscrossed downtown Chicago in several groups at times, a challenge for police, some of whom were on bicycles, others who were on foot, others being driven around in white vans wearing riot gear, prepared to handle whatever may come their way. But clearly, as they all gathered together in front of the Art Institute a little while ago, it was the most impressive show of force since the rally and parade ended on the south side earlier this afternoon that ended in violence. So far in front of the Art Institute, there has only been a few things thrown at police. There has been no clash or engagement between the protesters and the police, but clearly not only are the police officers who are lining Michigan Avenue ready with their batons out and their riot shields down, but there are many, many hundreds, if not more than 1,000 Chicago police officers waiting in the wings to deal with these protesters on Michigan Avenue. Now live again in front of the Art Institute, where Chicago police waited out with protesters who continue to arrive here, some from a group called Black Bach. They were the ones who earlier today clashed with Chicago police on the south side. We'll have more on that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Reporting live from the Art Institute, Chuck Gowdy, ABC 7 News. That's the latest from here.
All right, thanks very much, Chuck, and we can get more immediately on that frightening few moments when there was a clash between protesters and police today. Here's Ravi Bajwal.
Well, Ron and Cheryl, indeed it was very scary for quite a time there. And you know what? The police say they expected all this, but, you know, for a while it seemed like it may not happen. But then this combination of anti-NATO sentiment, hot weather, and people out to make more than noise had its inevitable conclusion.
You must disperse to the west.
At first, it seemed like this could be avoided. But after a somber ceremony for over an hour, protesters, primarily with a black bloc, tried to bust the police line, but it wasn't going to happen. Police encircled the crowd from the east and the north, and at one point readied their gas masks. And over the next 90 minutes, law enforcement moved the crowd west along Cermak, slowly, always announcing all the way along that those who stayed would face arrest. In the end, 7 protesters were injured and taken to the hospital.
We were roughed up by the police a little bit. We've seen a few kids get their heads split open right in front of us.
The police superintendent waded into the melee and later got emotional at a nighttime press conference.
You think it's easy to ask people to do what they did? It's not. Asking people to put themselves in harm's way, knowing that they're going to get assaulted, and be able to stand there and take it, these guys were amazing.
And as Chicago police, backed up by their sister agencies, prepare perhaps for more of this tomorrow, a former Chicago top cop says the unrest is far from over.
This was the big event. This is what everybody's been talking about. But I don't think we should drop our guard. We still have 60 leaders of the world in the city, and for some people, they want to make a statement.
Now, Police Superintendent McCarthy stressed that when his officers started donning those gas masks, that was a mistake of communication, and he had no intention of issuing the order to use chemical or non-lethal force on the protesters. Ron and Cheryl, that includes the much-vaunted high-volume LRAD system to blast the crowds with ear-shattering noise. He said it was never going to happen.
Made announcements with it, but not that piercing noise.
Very tactical use of that.
All right, thanks, Ravi. Just moments ago, a spokesperson for Mayor Rahm Emanuel released this statement about today's protest. Today's march was peaceful, with approximately 2,000 people exercising their First Amendment rights. While there have been some scuffles with individual protesters, the Chicago Police Department has acted professionally and with restraint as protesters refused to disperse.
The trouble began after a ceremony in which veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan symbolically returned their medals. One by one, they told their stories. Several spoke of the reasons they joined the military. Some mentioned the civilians killed in the wars and the children left without parents. All threw their medals toward McCormick Place, where the NATO delegations were meeting.
We no longer stand for them. We no longer stand for their lives, their failed policies, and these unjust wars. Bring our troops home and end the war now. They can have these back.
I'm letting go and releasing this medal because love is the most powerful force that we can employ as human beings on this planet. And we cannot love holding weapons.
We will hear more from the veterans who return their medals coming up in the next half hour.